This episode is brought to you by Benton Integrative Medicine, a concierge, membership-based medical practice offering direct primary care, functional medicine, hormone and sexual health, and wellness and vitality programs.
At Benton Integrative Medicine, they look beyond symptoms to uncover root cause solutions, helping patients restore balance, energy, and well-being through a comprehensive and personalized approach.
Their team believes in medical freedom, informed choice, and patient autonomy, empowering you to take charge of your health with a trusted partner by your side. Learn more at bentonintegrative.com and discover how integrative care can help you thrive, body, mind, and soul. Our listeners know that the three of us are passionate about exposing the broken systems within our society, revealing how the quest for money and power has corrupted so many of them so that they no longer serve us.
That's right. We talk a lot about our broken medical system, and that includes our broken medical insurance system. We believe that it is time we dismantle the broken systems and work together to rebuild new ones that actually serve us.
And that's why we are excited to share an answer we found as an alternative to your traditional insurance plan that charges you exorbitant monthly payments and deductibles, then asks you to pay even more when you get sick, that controls your medical decisions, including what your physician is allowed to do and prescribe, and that rakes in billions as corporations at our expense.
That's why we love Crowd Health. We interviewed CEO Andy Schoonover in episode 106, which we encourage you all to check out to learn more. But Andy founded Crowd Health after experiencing firsthand just how inept and outrageous insurance companies have become.
Crowd Health is not an insurance company, but a platform and a community that empowers you with a crowdfunding tool and a wealth of resources to efficiently manage your healthcare costs. And it's an excellent alternative to health insurance, allowing us to escape the healthcare matrix and put us and our healthcare providers back in charge.
Ever since my family and I made the switch to Crowd Health, not only are we proud to be part of a company with integrity, but we love that we are free from the broken insurance system. We will never be part of that system again. We've had nothing but an A+ experience. From before we even enrolled, we connected with an advocate who answered our questions. Then upon enrollment, we were immediately assigned a personal advocate who is literally a text away anytime I need her. If you follow them on Instagram and Twitter, you will see not only how much they truly care about each of the members, but also how much money they save us. This is why we encourage all of you to go to joincrowdhealth.org to learn more and to use code JUSTTHINK to get your first 3 months of membership for just $99 a month. Again, it's joincrowdhealth.org with discount code JUSTTHINK. You can also reference our Just Think the podcast Substack for more information.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Just Think the podcast. This is Holly.
And Amy.
And Kristen.
And today we are joined by two very special guests. But the first one, this will be our first podcast ever when we get to talk about our fur babies. We get to talk about our pets and doing all that we can to keep our pets healthy and safe and living long and vibrant lives. And we have wanted to do this conversation for years because I think most of our listeners know, if you're familiar with Just Think, you know, the three of us, Kristen, Amy, and myself, we were on a journey to figure things out, to know what is true, what is good, what is healthy, what are the things that help us live strong, long, vibrant lives, and then what are those same things that we can find for our pets. And as we began to upend the traditional way of thinking, the person that you listeners have heard us probably mention the most is my sister, Anna White. And Anna is sitting beside me today. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see her. But Anna connected me to Dr. Judy Morgan several years ago when I was looking for ways for my dogs to live well, because I started to have the exact same questions about the dog vaccination schedule. I started to have the same questions about dog food. You know, with all the dog food recalls and all that, I was like, what should we be feeding our dogs? Anna said, you need to follow Dr. Judy Morgan. And today we are thrilled to tell everyone that today we have Dr. Judy Morgan on this episode with us. So Dr. Judy, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Well, what we would love for you to do is to start by telling our audience, because I know you were allopathically trained veterinarian, tell our audience how you got to become Dr. Judy Morgan.
Well, yes, I was allopathically trained. I went to the University of Illinois and graduated in 1984. It makes me a dinosaur. But so we're talking early 80s, Midwest America. It doesn't get any more traditional than that. And I practiced traditional medicine for the first 10 years of my career. I absolutely hated my job. I don't know why I didn't quit. I wanted to, but when you have debt from school and one career path, what are you going to do? So I stuck with it. And then I accidentally took a chiropractic course. It was called veterinary orthopedic manipulation. I didn't know that was chiropractic until I got to the course, and I'm sitting in a room and it was half veterinarians and half chiropractors. And I thought, this is very odd. What are we talking about? And I figured out pretty quickly, we're talking about chiropractic. I didn't know if I really believed in it. I had never thought about using it on animals, but I paid a lot of money to be there. So I stuck it out. And when I went back to work the following week, I started using what I had learned, and the results were miraculous. So I said, oh my gosh, I've been missing this for 10 years. This is a huge change. And then I wanted to know what else was out there. So the first thing I went to was homeopathy. And one of my clients was a third generation homeopath. She gave me all the coursework, the notebooks, the tapes to listen to, everything to study homeopathy. And I started doing it, and I said, I need to live about 100 more years to learn enough. Like, homeopathy is so in depth and very, very, very specific. I love it as a modality, but I knew it wasn't screaming to me like, this is what you want to do. So I kept looking at different things. And as people started hearing that I was doing some different things, I started getting more holistic clients, and they started teaching me. And so the next thing I went into was acupuncture, and absolutely loved acupuncture and the other branches of Chinese medicine, which include Chinese herbs, food therapy, which is what has really stuck for me, and Tuina, which is sort of a combination chiropractic massage. So I like it. It's just another tool in the toolbox. So then social media started becoming more mainstream, and I got involved with I'm a Cavalier King Charles person, if you can't tell. I got involved in a Facebook community of Cavalier King Charles owners, and everybody would ask the normal questions that you see on social media. Well, what do you use for heartworm preventative? Well, how do you prevent fleas and ticks? Well, what do you feed your dog? And my answers were always different from everyone else's. And then they finally figured out, oh, she's a veterinarian. Oh, she's a holistic veterinarian. Like, this is kind of different. And so they told me that I should write all this down somewhere, so that people, instead of asking the same questions over and over and me having to keep answering them, that it would be in one place. So I wrote my first book, From Needles to Natural, and it came out in 2000. I was delusional and thought if you write a book, everybody just buys it. But that's not true. If you write a book, you kind of have to do a lot of promotion to get people to even know that it exists. So that started me on the journey of social media. From, along that journey, my practices, I opened a second practice. They became very popular. People were driving up to 7 hours each way to get to my practice, to have their animals seen. Our social media was becoming more well known. And we started this little company called Naturally Healthy Pets in our garage, which was a supplement company with natural products. And then I just started speaking all over the place, and it's just sort of ballooned. So I sold my 2 practices in 2020, retired from clinical medicine, and now work full time for Naturally Healthy Pets. We've moved from New Jersey to North Carolina. Naturally Healthy Pets is now a multi-million-dollar company with about 15 employees. Not what I planned on doing in retirement, and I'm working on book number 10 now.
Well, listen,
So
first,
that's it.
we want all the links to all the books because we're going to put them in the show notes. Because, like you said, a lot of people don't know they exist. Even if they follow you, may not know all the things that you've written about and all the information that's out there that's accessible to them. And one thing that I know Kristen, Amy, and Anna will all say is, if you don't know, start reading. Really, start reading and thinking for yourselves and find. I think so many times people are just in this generation they want to be told what to do. And it's not that, of course, Dr. Judy, when we found you, we knew that the information that you were giving was sound and it was researched but I think that sometimes people are just like, I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to trust who I've historically trusted. And that journey sometimes doesn't work out well. I know it didn't for me. And so what I'm thankful for is that you have been willing to use your voice in a time where there are people who will come up against you because you are saying things that are just outside the norms when it comes to your pets. But I want Anna to now share with you kind of how you helped her, because if we were to just go back just a few years, I finally in the last 4 years found a vet that is aligned with you, Dr. Judy. Like, she is so awesome here in Raleigh, North Carolina.
It's hard to do.
What'd you say? What did you say, Dr.
I said
Judy?
it's hard to do.
So hard to do. And I give her name out a lot because a lot of people still are having a hard time finding it. And so we went several years without anyone to help us. And Anna did the research. She even saved my puppy when he got bit by a snake, by a copperhead. And Anna knew the homeopathy. And by 10 p.m., the dog was bringing the ball to me to fetch. Like, I'm not kidding. When I tell you, we have stories upon stories of things that we figured out how to help our dogs. But Anna, will you share a little more about like when you found Dr. Judy and how her information helped you?
Yes. So honestly, Dr. Judy, I think it was through Facebook that I found you, but many years ago. I think it's when you still did the Facebook live videos, which were awesome. I know, but I'm sure that came with some backlash from, trolls. But I think that's how I found you.
Always.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, it was, I think for all of us, when you get into the more holistic lifestyle, it's a process. So, but what changed us was looking at food, as, the nutrition aspect. I had a dog that chronic allergies. The most help we got was from a girl at the pet food store who said, your dog might have a chicken allergy. But honestly, her little bit of information kind of helped get the ball rolling, because that was part of the issue, not all of it, but we just couldn't get the help from allopathic vets. And so somehow I landed on your page, took the leap and started following some of your recipes, and my dog's health drastically improved. The allergies almost were completely gone. She did have a condition, I think you call it laryngeal paralysis. I believe that's how you pronounce it. But I was in one of your groups and I got more information about that. So I started a Chinese herb, your supplement PES. We started, and she's since passed, but those things I was convinced gave her a higher quality of life, even up until the very end.
And longer. I felt she lived longer. She went from looking like she was on death's door to living several more years after that.
And I'll tell you this, we went to 2 vets and there was nothing they could offer me. The one advice that one vet gave me was maybe give her a kennel cough vaccine. I said, well, then if she does, then my other dog's could get kennel cough from this. And she doesn't have kennel cough. So it was just this whole thing where you start, I think you feel very vulnerable because you're outside of this, we're not the vets, but we know how to read. that actually was the thing that I think for all of us, you can empower yourself. But there was a time where I think all of us kind of were in between.
Yeah.
I just dove into your books, even now, I had a vet come a few months ago and just do some lab work. I wanted just to see how my dog, who's on most of your recipes, I wanted to see how her panel looked. She's 11. But after the vet left, I went on YouTube and looked at your videos to figure out how to understand all the blood work. So again, I think Holly has said this, but I am forever, my bucket list, one of my bucket list people of someone who changed my life. I figured I'd never meet you, but the information that you provided, so much of it is free. It's free information that empowers pet owners. And I'm so grateful. So
thank you for helping us escape a very broken system.
Is a very broken system.
And I think that's where I'll tell you my journey into this too is like I was a nurse in the traditional system in the ER, and I got out for multiple reasons. I loved being a nurse, but it definitely was not aligned with what I wanted to do. So, but the thing is, I knew more about like people. And I was already questioning vaccines and all this stuff. And you want to like, you want prevention and longevity for us as humans. But honestly, I also didn't grow up with animals except like the random turtle that we found on the road and, those things. Because my dad was allergic to cats and dogs, although now he has a dog. So I think he just lied and didn't really want us to have a dog. But that's okay. It was worth it away. But now that I'm a pet owner, you just think it's one of those things, just do what they always tell you to do. And you trust the vet because most of us, we already don't have a lot of the knowledge that, that we want or should have even for ourselves or for our kids, much less our animals. And then you start thinking, well, shoot, they're living beings too. Like, why don't we treat them like we treat ourselves? And so you just go down that path. But I think a lot of people do also feel like the expense. You start thinking about money and all of these things. But then once again, if you invest in their health, then you don't have to invest in the sickness, So like, and you want a vibrant, animal for as long as possible because I mean, that's why we have them. But you have really helped me. Anna is who got me into like with you. Like our dog had, some allergies too. And like I went on your website, through some suggestions and I was like, oh my gosh. And I get your Dr. Judy's Friday 5. Like she literally is a wealth of information. And Anna literally like a lot of what we know is because of Anna. So thank you.
Yes.
But thank you, Dr. Judy, or she's the one that connects with the people we need to know. And it's really when you're in North Carolina. That's awesome.
I think I need to send Anna some gifts.
Half of our area knows about you because of Anna, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Let's start with the basics of food, Dr. Judy. I think in the era of, it was all in our news feeds the last few years, the animal food recalls. And I think that even had some pet owners starting to think, wait, what's in our dog's food? Can we start with, I know Amy has a cat, so you can speak to cats too. Kristen and I have dogs. What do you suggest? Again, everybody, by the time you're done with this podcast, you're going to go to Dr. Judy's website and you're going to find everything. But let's just let our listeners know, what do you recommend to feed your dogs?
So a couple things. We were talking about the books earlier. And for your listeners, if they go on naturallyhealthypets.com, which is our website, and use the code JustThink50, they get 50% off any of the books that I have written. So they're all on the naturallyhealthypets.com. So JustThink50, you get 50% off. So start there. So as far as food, it's really very simple. Our pets deserve human grade food. So we hear veterinarians talk about pet food and all pets should be fed pet food. And they say things like, don't ever give them any people food. Now, I'm sorry, but real food is food. And our pets deserve real food. And if we want to call it people food, then we're going to call it people food. But they deserve human grade food. So if you're buying food from the big 3 pet food makers, one is a actually 2 of them are candy companies, Nestle and Mars. So they're candy companies that make a lot of other food, and their pet products divisions are now the biggest support for their companies. Like Nestle saw their profits go down last year, except in their pet food market. So you better believe they're putting a lot into their pet food market. So we've got Colgate-Palmolive owns Hills, and then we have these other 2, which are the main market share. It's like $35 billion each. It's crazy. But what they're using is the waste products from the human food industry. So distillers grains, well, that's after they distill grains to get the alcohol and whatever product they want out of it. Then they've got all these hulls and waste products. What do we do with that? That can't possibly go to a landfill. So we're going to put that in pet food. It's a great filler. It's sort of digestible. It's a fiber source. I mean, they have a lot of good reasons why we should be feeding this to our pets. They also use a lot of grains and legumes. So you'll see a lot of corn in some of the less expensive products. Well, the grains that go into pet food are the ones that didn't pass inspection for human food. So it's the moldy grains, it's the toxic grains. That's what goes into the pet food. And that's where we got one of our biggest recalls ever for pet food was because of mold toxins, aflatoxins, which cause liver failure, by the way. And our pets are pretty susceptible to those, particularly the kitty cats. And cats are obligate carnivores. So they should never have corn in their diet. And if you go look at dry kibble for kitty cats, which is a big no-no, never feed your cats dry kibble. It goes so against what they're made to eat, but they're filled with grains and fillers that are just not digestible. Cats don't do well, they're digestible, but not very well by cats. And unless we add back the amino acids that are found in meat into that food, like taurine, our cats are going to die of all kinds of horrible things. So the pet food companies know that, so they just add the amino acid back in as a chemical. When you read the ingredient label on a bag, and you might recognize the first 4 or 5 words because they might have things like chicken or beef or meat. They might have some grains. And then you see this chemical soup list. That's all the vitamins and minerals that are synthetic that they have to add back in to make this sustain the life of your pet. Well, why don't we get our vitamins and minerals from real food, just like we should with people? So if you go buy a box of breakfast cereal for your kids, you'll see on the label that there's this vitamin mineral mix added in. And it's because the the nutrient value in the food is so low from the processing that in order for your kids to get anything usable nutrient wise, they have to throw it back in as a chemical soup. So you need to be a label reader. You don't want to see meat meals. You don't want to see bone meal added in. You don't want to see this chemical soup added in. You want to be able to read the label and say, oh, and you get bonus points if all the stuff in there says organic, but then the price point goes up. And I get it. People come after me and say, "Oh, you're making it impossible to feed our pets because it's way too expensive to feed human grade, gently cooked or raw without all the vitamins and minerals added back in. It's way too expensive to feed our pets." But I really like what Kristen said, which is, you can pay for better food or you can pay more vet bills. Take your pick. And we can talk about the veterinary industry at some point here, but it's not in a good place. And most people are priced out of being able to take their pets to the veterinarians right now. My daughter's dog ate a toy, had some vomiting and diarrhea a couple of weeks ago on a Thursday night. And so Friday morning, she called our vet and they said, "Oh, well, if she needs surgery to get something stuck, or if we need to do endoscopy to go get it, we can't do that. It's going into the weekend. So you might as well take her to the specialty center right out of the gate." Gwen said, "Fine." She had to call 5 before she could find one that would even take the dog. One of the major centers said, "Oh, well, we only have board certified surgeons and they're only available Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. So if your dog needs surgery on the weekend, we can't do it." She's like, "Oh, okay." So she finally found one an hour away that would take the dog, takes the dog there. The dog was there for 48 hours, didn't need surgery, and the bill was $7,200.
Yes.
So for vomiting and diarrhea, and she got IV fluids and a bunch of x-rays.
And this is
So
why
who can afford that?
Nobody.
that's right. And that's why when Billy, our boy, when he was about maybe 12 weeks, 14 weeks, he was a puppy, got bit by a copperhead when we were roaming the property. Our dog's free range roam because we got land. He got bit and I started panicking, and sweet Anna just happened to be out exercising and she saw me and she goes, "Hold on, I'm going to run to the house." And she got her homeopathy and I think Benadryl or what, I don't know what it was we did, but I know that I called my friend who is an emergency vet and I called him and said, "Mike, I feel like he's been bit. What do I do?" And he said, "I'm out of town, but I'll call ahead, bring him in." And I was like, "Mike, I know what that's going to cost me."
Yeah.
And if I said, "My sister, like, be honest with me, is he going to die from this? Like, I just need to know, do you think my dog's going to die from this?" "It's not likely. There's always a chance, not likely." And I said, "I'm going to bet on my sister. So I'll call you back." I miss. Dude, this was like at 4 in the afternoon, and by 10, he's playing and bringing me the ball to play fetch. And it was a copperhead, y'all, had the fang marks and everything.
Well, just so that, because I'm sure you'll have to put a disclaimer on this, but we had our hound dog. It happened to her. And not, and we're in the middle of nowhere when it happens. So we use, the homeopathic remedies and keep an eye on it. Again, not giving medical advice, but we've seen things work.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, just kind of to reiterate, it's very expensive. And of course, we love our pets. We would do what we need to do. But you are exactly right. The average American cannot afford these emergencies, much less just the care that the vet is now asking us. We get the phone calls from the practice, not from my vet in the practice that I love. The practice goes, "Your dogs are due." And I'm like, "We'll see you when we need you. We'll just see you when we need you." So, Dr. Judy, can you, what'd you
Quick, I just want to share this story real quick. Just this
Okay.
week, we have a 5-month-old puppy. They're almost 6 months, and her sister came over and played, and she came in, and I thought it was a chunk of dirt, but it was actually blood. And she had gotten, not my dog Winnie, but the Josie, her sister, but there's like a little chunk. It's almost like if you I guess if somebody went to shave her before surgery, like the fur is off, but it's not a puncture wound, because I wanted to make sure, whatever. My mom is just concerned because the puppy's supposed to be staying with another puppy this weekend because they're going out of town. I was like, well, you could just ask the vet, see what they say. She sent a picture to the vet, and they said, well, they might need a surgery to figure out what's going on. I was like, what? You don't need to take her in for surgery. What are they going to do? I don't understand why that would even be an option. And maybe they just didn't see the picture. Maybe it looked worse from their angle or whatever. But I'm like, come on. This is where, and the thing is, you would have to pay for the vet bill just for them to tell you, do you need surgery or not? And it's just like, look, again, not giving medical advice. Obviously, we don't want it to get infected. We don't want it to, there's a lot of things you got to look at. But like, for their immediate response to be like surgery, I'm like, what?
it's
It's a little crazy.
So, Dr. Judy, having been in the industry and now having created a way sort of outside that system, I know what a lot of our listeners would ask you, which is, do I need to do the yearly annual visits? And if so, what does my pet get from having an annual visit to a vet? Or is there another option, maybe a more affordable option, to not do these well visits? What's your opinion on that?
So I love veterinarians. I am one. And I think they're very important. And I think that every single pet owner should have an amazing relationship with their veterinarian, because when you do have an emergency, you want to be able to get a hold of someone and have someone answer your questions. You want someone. So I come from a different generation. I'm a boomer. We were raised in the generation of, you work 100-hour weeks. There's no such thing as life work balance. There's work, and then there's, you kind of raise your family while you're working. My kids grew up in cages in the clinic. My kids grew up working in the clinic. My kids have very good work ethics. Yay. Um, and they knew what I liked. I had one who brought me a bottle of Belvedere vodka for every single visit. I had clients who dropped off bagels every week and donuts and would buy lunch for the staff. You better believe when that client called 5 minutes before closing and they had a problem, we were like, yeah, we'll wait for you. Come on in. It's hard to find somebody who'll do that these days, no matter how much you like them and they like you. But I would say everybody should have an amazing relationship with their veterinarian. I don't have a license to practice in North Carolina, so I actually have a veterinarian for the veterinarian's animals. I have multiple veterinarians because I have horses and cows and goats and dogs and cats. And I've made very good friends with the small animal veterinarian that I use for the dogs and cats. So one Friday morning, I went out to the barn. I've got a cat with a broken leg. It's hanging at the wrong angle. I'm like, that's not a good thing. So, I know they open at 8 o'clock. At 8:01, I'm on the phone. I'm dropping this cat off. Just, get an x-ray at some point today. Tell me what we need to do. And she called me back in 20 minutes and said, it's broken. It's ugly. You have two choices, amputation or pins and screws in here. And I'm like, great. I know you don't do that. Where am I going? And she literally spent over an hour calling surgeons to find one who would see my cat, because it was a Friday morning. We drove an hour and a half to get to a veterinarian who would see the cat. But because I have a good relationship with this veterinarian, she was willing to do that legwork for me. So my animals go in pretty much once a year. My dogs pretty much go once a year. My cats, yeah, a little more as needed. Mm, Mostly because the barn cats are very hard to catch. I had one the other day with a huge bite wound on her butt, and it was so ugly. I'm like, I really should take her in. I can't clean it up myself because she's going to have to get sedated. And so I called them. I said, can I drop this cat off in the morning? And by the way, it's a barn cat. I may or may not catch this cat. And they're like, yeah, fine. We'll just put her on the schedule. Next morning rolls around. We got 4 of us chasing this cat around the barn. The cat took off. We never caught the cat. I'm like, well, called them back and said, we're not coming. Here we are 2 weeks down the line. The wounds are healing. She hasn't had antibiotics. She hasn't had the hair shed. Like, nothing's been done. It's healing. Cats are doing their cat thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's what cats do. So, but I do like my 2 old cats, my 2 old house cats. They were both just in and got exams and lab work done. And their kidneys are not, one of them, the kidneys are not so happy. So I'm like, all right, well, now I know how to deal with that because I have lab work that told me I have a problem. He was acting weird, so I knew it was a problem anyway. And then the other one was acting really weird. She was head pressing with her eyeballs closed, face down in her food bowl for about 3 weeks. And I was like, this is really not normal. So she went in and got lab work, and she's got encephalitis. Where'd she get it? I have no idea. She's an indoor cat. They all eat the same thing, but maybe she has a brain tumor. I don't know. But okay, good. Now I know what I need to treat. Can treat it. My dogs go every year I obviously can do an exam, but they go in and they get complete lab work. I am a huge fan of lab work. It's gotten ridiculously expensive. I get it. Part of that is because Mars, that candy company, has bought up the largest diagnostic lab, the largest radiology and ultrasound company for the veterinarians. So they're literally they own 2/3 of the specialty and emergency clinics in this country. So talk about a corner on the market and being able to price gouge because there's nobody else available is what it is. That's why I said, problems with the industry. But I'm a huge fan of that annual exam because you as a pet owner, you don't know how to palpate the abdomen and say, oh, the liver's enlarged, the spleen's enlarged. Hey, there's a mass in there. Most of you, I mean, maybe our nurse, but most of you don't know how to listen to their heart and lungs and say, oh, we've got a murmur, we've got some raspiness in there. They need to have their mouth looked at to see whether we've got big dental problems, particularly in the smaller breeds of animals. And I like that lab work. And I get the lab work even on my young dogs. My youngest are 4.5. They get their lab work because I'm proactive. Like if I see something, if I see a liver enzyme that's crept up, or if, something's going on that I can't see from the outside, that's where I'm going to see it. And by starting early, it gives me that comparison. I can look at this year compared to last year and say, well, we're trending in the wrong direction, or there's something I need to get on top of. So I am a huge fan of the annual exam. What I'm not a fan of is annual going in for shots. And that's what you get in the mail. You get a card in the mail, or now it's a text message on your phone or an email that says, Gabby is due for, and then they give you a long list of vaccinations. And so I go in and go, nope, we're not doing those because she doesn't need those. I'm good. She doesn't go anywhere. We don't need boarding, grooming, daycare. Not a problem. And that's where a lot of the problem lies with the over-vaccination, boarding, grooming, daycare, travel. You need proof of all these different things. So my dogs, I learned how to groom them myself, and I bought all the grooming equipment. And I think when this group of dogs leaves the world, I may get short-haired dogs that require zero grooming other than the occasional nail trim. Life would be a lot easier. So, I learned to do things myself. When I go away, either dogs, we used to have a motorhome because it was much easier to take the dogs with us and I didn't have to have proof of 27 different things to take them somewhere. So they don't get boarded. I think this group would probably, I've got a bunch of wimpy dogs. They would probably all die if they had to go get boarded somewhere. So if we go, usually my mom will take care of them if it's she lives with us, she's 89. But she'll take care of the dogs if we're not going to be gone for too long. And if we're going to be gone for too long, like I'm doing a lot of traveling this fall for speaking around the world. My son and his fiance are moving into our house for 3 months to take care of my mother and all the animals. If we take my mother with us, we have a pet sitter that drives from New Jersey to North Carolina. I pay her very well, and she will take care of all the farm animals and all of the pets. while we're gone. But then I have peace of mind because I have someone that I know I can trust who is probably more paranoid about things happening to them than I am. And, for me, that is peace of mind and not having to vaccinate them all the time. So I'm not an anti vaxxer, but boy, I think we have been so irresponsible with how we have recommended the over vaccination of our animals for so long. And of course, they keep coming up, just like in the human field, they just keep coming up with new ones. Oh, look, now we can add this on. Yeah, let's not.
Well, one thing I just found out was, I mean, honestly, I didn't know this because I just started going to a more holistic vet just in the past few years. I didn't know that they could just check titers, the antibody titers for rabies. And so you don't actually have to get the full vaccine. Because I know in North Carolina, you have to register your animal. They have to get the rabies vaccine. You have to show proof of it. I mean, that's the one definitely that I absolutely do get. I'm like, damn it. But I love that, like, you can do the titers. And, like, so if they're still there, they can get like a partial dose or something. Correct. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Dr. Judy?
Nope, wrong.
Wrong. Okay.
A positive titer is not having a positive titer is not accepted by most government agencies. So your township, your town, your state, for licensing, for travel, for that sort of thing, they can have a positive titer. So one of our dogs with heart disease years ago, we found out that you could have this heart surgery done in Japan and reverse the heart failure. So I was like, oh, that'd be cool. It was like $45,000. And I said, I bet with all of our followers, we can raise enough money that we can get this dog to Japan. And so I investigated, what do we need to do to get the dog to Japan? So you have to give a rabies vaccine, you have to get a titer showing that it worked, and then you have to, even though it's positive, you have to give another vaccine. And so I said, well, all right, let me titer this dog and see where we are to begin with. And she hadn't had a rabies vaccine in like 7 years at that point. And considered positive is anything over a 0.5. My dog had a 14. And I said, okay, there's no reason for this dog to get another vaccine. But the rules are, in order to take my dog overseas to Japan, she was going to have to get 2 more rabies vaccines. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to do that. And so state of Delaware has a law pending to accept titers. I know that floated around in like Nevada, somewhere out there. And I think New Hampshire kind of has it going on right now. Whether it gets passed, who knows? Probably not. The vaccine industry seems to have a pretty heavy hand on politicians. So I think that getting titers accepted is a long road. Interestingly, I have a friend who's a mayor of a small town in New Jersey, and his family has brought their dogs to me for 20 years when I was in New Jersey. And for that particular small town, they will accept titers and they will accept exemptions if your pet is too sick to have a vaccine. And then that's another whole can of worms. What is considered too sick? Because vaccines, and it may say this on human vaccines as well, but on pet vaccines, on the paperwork, it says to be administered to healthy dogs or cats. Well, what's the definition of healthy? Because if you talk to a veterinary oncologist, so that's a cancer doctor, and I asked this because we had a dog who was going to the oncologist and she was undergoing chemotherapy. And I said, so if this dog needed a rabies vaccine right now, she's got cancer and she's undergoing chemotherapy, that's not a healthy dog. And the label says to be given to a healthy dog. And she said, oh, it'd be no problem. We could go ahead and give it. And this was an integrative oncologist who was supposed to be more holistic. And I just went, OMG. So, like, we can't even follow the rules to be given to healthy animals. So an animal whose immune system is completely trashed and they have all these allergies going on, they've got chronic inflammatory diseases, arthritis, chronic pancreatitis, all these things going on. Is that animal considered healthy enough to be vaccinated? In my mind, no. We have animals with seizures. Should we be administering a rabies vaccine, which travels along nerve pathways and causes inflammation? Should we be giving that to those animals? I think not, but I'm in a minority.
Well, listen, just to clarify, when I was talking about the titer, what I mean is it's not that my vet that we didn't get the rabies vaccine. It's that depending on what the antibodies showed, that depended on the dose he was gonna give my dog. Like, if there were still like, antibodies there, maybe he didn't give the full dose, and that all I have to do is just, like, send in that she was covered with the rabies vaccine. That I mean, because she still got the rabies vaccine, but it probably wasn't the full dose if she had the antibodies or whatever it was. I can't I mean,
if
I
they
probably
give
should have asked.
if a veterinarian gives anything less than a full dose, it's illegal. That's how, I'm not gonna think of his name. The guy up in New England lost his license because he was giving partial doses of rabies vaccines.
Oh, that is so sad. Well, we're
So
not
there may be some veterinarians doing that on the sly,
yeah.
but it's not legal.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, Dr. Judy. Okay, so as Kristen mentioned, we know that the rabies vaccine by law, um, and by the way, let me also just tell pet owners, listen, we don't go to dog parks. Okay, we take our dogs elsewhere. There's other places if you don't live in a city block. There's other places you can take your dog to do things. Just not a dog park. We don't we have dog sitters that come to our house. We don't board. We made those choices so that we could subvert kind of like the system, so we could navigate around the system. There is a way to do that. If you are convinced, as we were, that your dog's health should be a priority and that the food they eat should be good food and that they should not be over vaccinated or over treated, then there are ways to do it. And believe me, it's not been that hard. We even have groomers now that will come that don't ask you, and come to the house. I know it's not simple, but it is doable. And we've all been doing it for years now. So it's doable. So let me ask you this, Dr. Judy. Anna, what's the vaccine we get pressure about sometimes by the vets?
Lepto.
Lepto.
We'd love for you to talk about that, because one thing I maybe on one of the group pages is that there's several strains. We'll let you talk about it, but I know when my vet came, and that's one we opt out of. And honestly, we were scared into it many years ago. That is one I just feel like the pressure is on. But this last vet did tell me, she said, you can't titer test for that because it only lasts a year or something along those lines. But anyway, we'd love to hear your
Take on that
some
lepto.
information on that as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of vaccines available. So we have the core vaccines and then lifestyle vaccines. So a core vaccine that they say all animals should get, rabies, number one, because it's a zoonotic disease and it's not treatable. So I kind of get it, but we just don't see rabies in this country very often, particularly from dog and cat bites, occasionally stray kittens. I got bitten by a rabid stray kitten, so they exist, but it's more of a bat, skunk, fox thing in this country. In other countries, tens of thousands of people die from rabies because they don't vaccinate animals very widely. So rabies is a core vaccine. Distemper, hepatitis, and parvovirus are the others. So we have cat distemper and dog distemper, and then for the dogs we have hepatitis and parvo. And so that's sort of the DAP. That's distemper, adenovirus, which is hepatitis, and parvo. That's kind of all lumped into one injection, and it's very hard to find single injections of those. So we always say split up your vaccines. It's hard to split that one up because you can get single parvo. Single distemper is really hard to find, if at all. Hepatitis doesn't exist as a single, so we're kind of stuck with that. So DAP and rabies are the core vaccines. Just in the past year or two, the powers that be have designated lepto as a core vaccine. It is a horrible vaccine. So it's a bacterin. The other main viruses, so rabies is a killed virus vaccine. The others are modified live or attenuated viral vaccines, and they make good immunity that will last for many, many years. When we get into bacterins, like the lepto vaccine, it doesn't last very long. It lasts 9 to 12 months. And there are 7 strains of lepto that our dogs can get. This is a dog only, not a cat thing. There's 7 strains that they can get. The initial vaccine that was around for the first 30 years I was in practice only had 2 of those strains in it. Now it contains 4. So 4 out of the 7. Yes, we can do a blood titer for antibodies for lepto, but it's not the same as doing a titer. That test is used more to say, yes, your dog has lepto. His antibodies are screaming right now because he's sick. So we use it to test if an animal is sick with lepto, but it doesn't work as a titer for them because it'll pretty much always be low. So it's just a waste of money and it's not cheap. So, if you are worried about lepto with your dog, then it's a vaccine that would need to be given every year. I've never given lepto for my dogs and I never will. Lepto is one of the most highly reactive vaccines, meaning that they can have allergic reactions to it. They can get infections at the site of the injection, abscesses. It's just not great. In my 40 years actually in practice, I think I had 4 cases of lepto that were diagnosed in that 40 years. So not something we see like on every street corner. However, when we did see quite a bit more was during COVID and the lockdowns. And lepto is spread through the urine of rats, raccoons, skunks, and dairy cattle. We don't see it much in dairy cattle at all, but we do see it in rats. So if you live in a city with a high rat population, remember New York City had to hire a rat czar because they had so many rats overrunning the city because everybody was hiding inside and the rats just took over. Anybody remember that old movie Willard? I'm probably the only person old enough to remember. But anyway, so, like I remember kind of near the end of lockdowns, in New Jersey, there was a big thing on all the news stations. Lepto outbreak in Jersey City, which is North Jersey. It's kind of in the armpit of New York. And it's, the rats had taken over. Well, the outbreak was 4 cases. What happened from now, I lived in South Jersey, all the way at the other end of the state, so 3 hours away. One of the local clinics, the We'll Do Anything for a Buck clinics, got on the Philadelphia News and said, oh, we're going to have a drive-through lepto vaccine clinic. $10 a dog. You drive through our parking lot. You don't have to be a client. No exam. We don't care when your dog's last vaccine was. And don't even take your dog out of the car. We're reaching in through the window, poking them with the vaccine, hand us your $10, cash, gone. They vaccinated 2,000 dogs in like 2 hours. Now, I'm sorry, that was a money grab. That had nothing to do with the health of our animals because lepto was no more prevalent in our area than it had ever been. So this is the kind of stuff that buyer beware, run the other way if you see this crap advertised. So I'm not a fan of the lepto vaccine. They have now made it a core vaccine, so they're recommending that all dogs be vaccinated for it. Have we seen a bit of an uptick? Tiny bit. And the problem is, could a person get lepto if their dog has it? Yep, it is another one of those zoonotic diseases, which is why they get all crazy about it. But I can say I had a client whose German Shepherd contracted lepto. The people were dog trainers and they had like 7 dogs that lived in the house. The dog, we think, got it at the training grounds after a heavy rain and there was a lot of puddles and standing water and a lot of wildlife. It was in the woods. So we think that's where the dog picked it up. None of their other dogs ever got sick. They never got sick. And we treated their dog and it survived. It had some long-lasting side effects, but it wasn't something that spread like wildfire through their family and through their other dogs. So I am really not a fan of that vaccine. So then we have other things like Lyme vaccine, which is only about 60% effective. It's absolutely a horrible vaccine. Don't recommend that. Don't give that to my dogs either. There are at least a dozen tick-borne diseases and none of the others have vaccines. So if you're saying, oh, but I'm so worried about my dog getting bitten by a tick and he might get Lyme, I've got to give the vaccine. That's what my sister lives in Massachusetts, big Lyme area, a lot of heavy tick area. She's like, they have to have Lyme vaccine. I'm like, well, what about Rocky Mountain spotted fever and anaplasma and Ehrlichia? And what are you doing about all those? How about we just keep the ticks off? That's another whole topic.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan of that vaccine. Not a fan of kennel cough vaccine because they're going to shed that stuff all over the place. They're going to be sick for a good 4 weeks and have side effects. And the best way to get your dog vaccinated for kennel cough is to let your dog be near another dog that was recently vaccinated for kennel cough. He's shedding it all over the place.
Yeah.
So I don't do that one.
Yeah.
There's a rattlesnake vaccine that I would never touch. What else is out there? I don't know.
There's
Influenza. Oh my gosh.
We just need the homeopathy for the rattlesnake one, right?
Can we ask
Yeah.
too if you'll speak on? I've seen a couple of your Instagram reels on this, but we're all concerned about the the mRNA shots that are for the pets. What is that going to do? Is that eventually going to be all the like all rabies shots? Will they be that? Do you have any idea of what's down the pipeline?
Man, I hope not, but they are definitely headed that direction.
Mm.
Yeah, we don't know. And, it's like I've been invited to speak at the National Police Working Dog Association in a couple of months. And I have to, I'm having a lot of this conversation in that talk. And so my daughter said, well, you have to talk about the RNA vaccines. And I'm like, oh my God, especially for the uneducated consumer, first I have to go through every single one of the vaccines, what they treat, how you get the disease, whether or not, what's your risk for it. And then we talk about with the rabies vaccine, make sure you ask for the thimerosal free, which is the T-free vaccine, which half the vets don't even know what that is. And now if I have to say, and ask them if it's the self-amplifying RNA vaccine, first of all, the veterinarian's head's going to spin and they're going to be so angry that you're asking questions that they probably, they usually, if they really are angry, it's because they don't understand what the question is and they don't know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for me and maybe for a nurse, you might be able to say, could I see the vaccine vial before you inject it into my animal? They may or may not show it to you. But, then you have to know what you're looking at when you look at it. How do I know that this is a self-amplifying RNA vaccine? Which, by the way, that reel on me talking about the RNA rabies vaccine got me in the national spotlight. The AVMA, the American Veterinary Medical Association, sent an email out to all of their membership calling me out and saying that I was an anti-vaxxer, social media influencer, totally wrong.
Of course they did.
That was a good one.
It's how it works.
It's a great badge to wear.
Yeah, welcome to the family of those who've been denigrated.
But to understand why we're even on this mRNA train. I mean, it ain't like it worked real well. I mean, who is thinking that this is great. Let's keep going with this. I mean, I don't understand this. And
because there's a lot of money.
I know. I mean, that's where I do understand because it is more about money than anybody or any human.
Common sense.
But can we talk about real quick too? Like, obviously another big concern is and flea and tick. Of course, this is where I started like looking at some of these normal medicines that they all give you. And you're like, God, seizures and I mean, like all the side effects. And I'm like, what do we do? So, and a lot of people don't even think twice about it because it's just what we've always done. Right. So
Dr. Judy, what are you
and when the person in the white coat is standing across the table with this treat in their hand and they say, here, this will keep fleas and ticks off your dog for the next 3 months. And then they feed it to them and it's gone before you know it. Like, what did you just do? Unfortunately, the Parasite Council, the Veterinary Parasite Council, and the traditional veterinarians all believe that feeding, injecting, and applying pesticides to our animals, like, would you tell if your pediatrician said, feed your child this pesticide, would you say, oh, that's a good idea. I should let my kid eat this pesticide so that he never gets bitten by a mosquito? First of all, these pesticides do not prevent your animal from being bitten by fleas and ticks and mosquitoes. They have to bite your animal in order to ingest the chemical or get the chemical on them. So it's a fallacy. Like your animal could, they don't prevent the spread of Lyme disease because the tick has to bite your dog. So that's wrong right off the bat. But pesticides that we use on and in our pets are neurotoxins. It means they affect the nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord. So we have animals with tremors. We have animals with seizures. We have animals that are dying. I mean, I have been speaking out these interesting. When I wrote this very first book, I was ready to go to the publisher in 2013, and that's when the first isoxazolines came out. And I said, hold up, I can't send the book out yet because they're bringing this new chemical to market. I've got to put something about that in here because this is craziness. And the crazy has just exploded. I just taped a reel this morning that'll come out sometime called What's in the News, but it's talking about how these pesticides remain in the feces of, so they're processed through the body and come out in the feces of our cats and dogs, and they are killing insects and dung beetles and butterflies and things that are feeding on that stool and ingesting those chemicals. And so we are finding deaths of young bird hatchlings because the fur of our animals is used to build the nests for the birds. And then these chemicals are killing the baby birds.
That's how strong.
So, what are we doing to what are we doing to our entire ecology and environmental hierarchy? So when the isoxazolines first came out, they floated this idea of feeding them to 25% of the people living in high malaria areas. And they said, well, we think if 25% of the people, like, how do you get off of that train? 25% of the people have this in their bloodstream. It'll kill, when the mosquito bites, it'll kill enough mosquitoes that'll stop the spread of malaria because we'll kill off so much of the mosquito population. I'm like, well, that's great because frogs and birds and lizards and things live on mosquitoes as their food source. So then what? These isoxazolines are being fed to poultry, to chickens, to prevent chicken mites. So chicken mites in the huge confinement houses are a huge problem. They decrease production. They decrease growth, because the birds are so busy scratching all the time. And when you have 20,000 chickens in a very small area, if one has mites, they all have mites. So it's a product called Exult. We'll feed it to all the chickens. We'll put it in their water, and nobody's looked at, are the byproducts of that still in the meat? Are they in the eggs? Like, what is this doing? But this is what we're all being fed. And so now, I've gone to the land of the crazy. We raise our own meat chickens. We have our own egg chickens. And,
No, I'm
you got to do what you got to do.
We just all need a commune. We just all need a commune and just have our own little everything. Like, that's what I want. Because I'm like, that's the only way you can trust what you're getting.
Yeah.
And so then what, and I know you've given some natural things, but I know, and obviously we'll send everybody to your website and your social media and stuff, but do you have any little quick tips of like better prevention for flea and tick or better prevention for heartworm than these medicines, And just so people can, or at least guide them to like, where can you learn more? Because this is probably the first time a lot of people are hearing this. And they're probably like, I'm so sorry to your animal, just like I was with my kids when I really started learning about the vaccines. I'm like, I had delayed them, if y'all know my story, but then you're just like, I don't want any of them. And now I'm like, I'm so sorry. It was like Russian roulette, but it's like when you know better, you do better. So it's okay. Now what can we do moving forward?
Yep. So I've got 7 outside cats because they're in charge of taking care of the barn and the mice and everything that goes on out there. And so they can't wear a collar. So, and I don't like flea collars anyway, but they can't wear a collar because they would just strangle themselves on a tree somewhere. I'm not going to put chemicals on them. We do everything naturally. They're all raw fed. I have the most beautiful barn cats you'll ever see in the world. They're just incredibly gorgeous. So we have an herbal natural powder because my barn cats are hard to catch. They're not like a house cat where you're going to sit and snuggle and get them on your lap. They're like, whoa, you're a little scary. And they were all born on the property, but they were from feral mamas and they are what they are. So, but they love my mom because she feeds them. So my mom will put the powder in her hand and then pet a cat. And if we can't get close enough to pet, I do the drive-by dusting. So that's what we do with our barn cats because, I can't do a whole lot else with them. For our dogs, we use essential oils. So whether that's a shampoo or a spray, we have flea tags that are scalar waves. The big thing with the flea tags is they have to be on your dog's body for 7. You can't take them off because it syncs with their heartbeat. But it repels fleas and ticks, and they're actually guaranteed. But you can't ever take them off. So it makes it a little tricky when you got to give them a bath because the tag has to stay on the dog while you're bathing. We also have ultrasonic tags, and we also have those for in your house that repel them. One of the big problems is that people just want to keep putting things on the pet. Fleas and ticks only spend 5% of their life cycle on the pet. The other 95% is in your yard, in the woods, in your sofa cushions. So you've got to take care of the environment. And that's where everybody drops the ball. They're so busy throwing so, and I will tell you that a healthy animal with a healthy immune system is very unlikely to become infested with any parasites. So we have nematodes. So if you have a yard, if your dog goes out, we have a huge fenced yard that our dogs go in. We don't let them go on the other 23 acres of the property because they would be down in the woods with the copperheads and everything else. And I'm not doing that. And we don't have hunting dogs. We have little wimpy house dogs. So they run around their yard. And if I have a problem with fleas, then I can put nematodes out in the yard. I have, there are natural powders or sprays that you can use inside the house on your pet bedding. I don't need to use it. I rarely have a problem with my animals. I think in the whole time we've lived in 6 years in North Carolina, I may have pulled off one or two ticks, and that's off my barn cats who go down in the woods. They're just healthy. They just don't attract them. Heartworm prevention. There's a lot of information about that in my books and on the website. If you really think you need to use heartworm, and we live in the South now where it's definitely a bigger problem, then milbomycin is the chemical of choice, which is in Interceptor. I don't give heartworm preventative to kitty cats at all. They just don't need it. And for the dogs, we use it seasonally. Now in the South, it doesn't really get cold enough in the winter for you to be able to do that seasonal thing. For people who live up north, like when I lived in New Jersey, I would say 90% of my clients gave heartworm preventative from middle of June till the middle of October. And then the rest of the year is just too darn cold. And that worked really well. Since we've moved to the South, knock on wood, I do not have my dogs on heartworm preventative. They're not outside in swampy areas with a lot of mosquitoes. I mean, I have house dogs. They're inside sleeping on the bed all the time. So you have to look at your pet's exposure. Like we had a stray dog that showed up at our house, this coon dog. My husband's always wanted a coon dog. I said, okay, fine. And this thing, let me tell you, we got him to the vet. He had every parasite known to dog kind, every intestinal parasite. He had thousands of fleas, thousands of ticks, and heartworms. And I said, oh, you're going to be a lot of fun. And my daughter, I was away, and my daughter brought him home from the vet, put him on her porch while she went in to drop off something, fence porch, came back just in time to see him flying over the fence and disappearing into the sunset. So, well, I guess it's not our problem anymore because he never came back. uh, so, if I had an outdoor hunting dog that, we were down in the swamps and we were out in the fields all the time, I'd look at it differently than I do with my dogs, and I would pick the safest product. And those products are actually very safe given at 45-day intervals. They chose the 30-day interval because when they came out originally, which was back in the 1980s, it was like, well, nobody's going to, we didn't have our little computers that we carried around with us in our pocket all the time. So we didn't have a calendar that we walked around with. So they said, well, we'll pick something easy. Once a month, you got to make your mortgage payment, your car payment, whatever. So they had the little stickers and you'd stick them on your car payment so that every month when you paid that, you remember to give the heartworm preventative. So all this information is in blogs and in my books, but you have to decide based on the exposure of your pet. And remember, in order for your dog to get heartworms, there has to be a heartworm positive dog. The mosquito has to bite that dog to get the baby worms. Then they have to spend 2 weeks in the salivary glands of the mosquito, which the temperature has to be above 80 degrees for that to happen. And then that mosquito has to find your dog and bite your dog. And then 7 months later, you might get a positive test. That's how long the life cycle takes. So, there's a lot to it. But what I would say there to avoid, like the plague, the heartworm injections, it's called ProHeart. There's a 6-month and a 12-month shot. And, for the pet owner, it's like, oh, I don't even have to worry about doing that, giving that pill once a month because, that's just so much work. They can just give them a shot once a year and I don't ever have to think about it. It'll be great. Yeah. Thousands of dogs have died from that shot. It is one of the most highly reactive things we give them. Avoid it like the plague. Avoid anything with moxidectin. That's the chemical in it. Bad, bad, bad news. So if you feel like you do need to give heartworm preventative, go ahead and give that monthly interceptor pill. Lose a little bit of convenience, keep your pet alive.
Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing. We wanted to introduce our networks to you, Dr. Judy, because as you said, we're really talking about individualized care and individualized medicine. And that means as pet owners, the buck stops with us, not our veterinarian. It stops with us. And it's on us to assess our own pet's lifestyle and what the risks and benefits are. What's so great about you and your team and your website and your products is that it really helped us decide for each of our pets, yeah, maybe I need to look at this or I look at that. And then finding a local vet here who did support my decisions completely. She's like, I think she's a chiropractor as well. Like she's more like Dr. Judy. She supports us in caring for these dogs in the way that they need. And I think what we'd like to give our audience is number one, permission to just think for yourself, to go and find the resources like you can find from Dr. Judy. Go find these resources. And then I'm happy to share, if you're in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, I will share with you the vet that I did find that works with me. I've given her to a lot of people, so I hope she still has openings. But I'm just saying,
I was going to say, she's going to get inundated.
I'll say it on the podcast for fear that it really will be bad. But just to say that, like, it took years. It took us years. Anna finally found a traveling vet that she likes. It took us years to find, but I think our willingness to take a little what felt like risk, like Kristen was saying, it's like, it feels kind of scary when you go outside the box, but a little risk to say, I'm going to hold off on some of these things until I really have the information I need to decide what's right for my pet. And just like you said, our pets are healthy. They're active. We do have dogs who run outside but live inside. They're healthy. They don't get sick. They don't have fleas and ticks. And we don't do preventative. I mean, we use your spray, Dr. Judy. We use your spray. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it is possible for them to live well and you to get out of the system and really take some of the financial strain and stress off of you when you start to help them live a little more naturally. So, Dr. Judy, how can people find you?
Naturallyhealthypets.com is our website, and we are on pretty much every social media channel, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We're kind of all over the place. And our goal is to educate and empower pet parents, take back the power, and not to argue with your veterinarian, but to be able to stand firm because you have the knowledge. And that is really critical. Knowledge is power. And, I think if we haven't, as humans, learned anything over the past 6 years, I think the big takeaway is question everything.
Amen.
Dr. Judy, it's such a pleasure. And I just got to check a bucket list item.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on with us. Guys, you can go to our show notes to find all links. Obviously, on our own social media pages, we'll connect you back to Dr. Judy. But we highly recommend pet owners go use her as a resource. You'll love her. Dr. Judy, we thank you so much. Dr. Judy Morgan, thank you for being with us.